Good evening, everybody. May I request everyone to kindly settle down? We're all set to begin this wonderful evening. A warm welcome to all the honorable, esteemed dignitaries present here today and to all our members of our family. I request our President of MCCIA, Mr. Sanjay Kirloskar, to kindly do us the honors and set the evening in motion.
So I've been asked by Director General to do his job. Uh, she usually does. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I have to talk a bit about Maratha Chamber. Established in 1934, our chamber carries a proud legacy of 91 years, testament to resilience, innovation, and unwavering commitment to fostering growth of businesses across our state. Over the decades, MCCI has evolved into a dynamic institution dedicated to advocacy and empowerment of micro, small, and medium enterprises. These enterprises are the backbone of our economy, and it's our mission to strengthen them. Through various initiatives, we provide critical knowledge support, organize impactful programs, and facilitate meaningful connections. In the last financial year alone, we conducted over 200 programs that reached approximately 12,000 companies across 36 districts of our state. Among ongoing initiatives, we are particularly proud of our weekly programs focused on formalizing MSME finance. These equip businesses with tools that they need to thrive in a competitive market. Additionally, we organize daily sessions on harnessing power of artificial intelligence for business growth. This is not just about keeping pace with technology, but it's about leading the charge towards a brighter and more innovative future. Furthermore, MCCI proudly serves both large and small companies within auto, engineering, and electrical sectors through our specialized clusters, including the Auto Cluster Development and Research Institute and the MCCI Electronic Cluster Foundation. They are the breeding grounds for collaboration and innovation, where ideas are exchanged and solutions are crafted. Today marks the beginning of yet another significant initiative, the Fireside Chat series with distinguished industry leaders. This series is envisioned as a platform for exploration and inspiration. So we will delve into evolving industrial landscape, discuss microeconomic trends, and share inspiring leadership stories that motivate and guide us. And it is with great excitement that we commence this series with none other than Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, leader whose insights will undoubtedly inspire us. I think I'm personally very grateful to you, Sanjeev, for having accepted this invitation. This is something that the Chamber wanted to do for quite some time. And though I reached out to quite a few people, you were the first one who agreed so readily. So thank you very much. Looking ahead, we are thrilled to announce that future sessions will feature other eminent leaders, including Sri Venu Srinivasan, Chairman of TVS, and many others. And I hope Venu being here will inspire Rajiv to come here as well. Each session promises to be a treasure trove of knowledge and inspiration. MCCI is a vibrant hub of activity, and I think I don't need to say the rest, because all of you must be waiting to hear Ajit and ask probing questions of Sanjeev. So thank you very much for asking me to do these honors. And I'd like to invite both Ajit and Sanjeev to the stage. Sorry to do you.
Good evening, everybody. I am really, truly delighted and privileged, actually, to be hosting this fireside chat with Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj. Please note that there is going to be no formal introduction of Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj. And it's a fantastic privilege, really, Sanjeev, and I'll call you by your first name. Uh, it's a very, very wonderful thing that you come here, and this is a fireside chat. So the idea is to have somewhat informal conversation to know about the person, about his leadership, about the business, about the company, and many more things beyond. The little AV that we saw about the company, I mean, about Bajaj Finserv, I should mention a few things. One of the things that really strikes you, so Sanjeev, just allow me 2-3 minutes because people need to know this. I've had the privilege, by the way, of working with Sanjeev through my association with CII. Even before he was the president, I think it was 4 years ago, 3 years ago. But he used to head the policy council, economic policy, and so on. So over the years, uh, I've had the privilege of working with him. One thing that strikes you, and this is something I must mention right at the outset, is the extremely grounded and chilled personality that he has. Extremely humble and grounded. I must mention it because you just saw the video. For example, his company, Bajaj Finance, which is an NBFC, I call it the biggest bank, which is not a bank, which we're going to talk about. Its market cap is $100 billion, or maybe more. $100 billion market cap. And built right here in Pune. I must mention that almost from scratch it's been built in Pune. You just saw in the video, they had about 7 or 8 months ago, they had an IPO of Bajaj Housing Finance, which is a subsidiary, I guess. And this is the most successful IPO ever in India's history. So claps for that as well. What do I mean by that? It means that the number of people, it was oversubscribed by some 67 or 70 times. More than even, which was the other one, I think, Coal India or something. So there is so much interest from investors. I mean, they were trying to raise something like 6,500 crores, and they got subscriptions for 3.5 lakh crores almost. And this just happened 6-7 months ago when we are in the middle of a world, in turbulence and stock markets are nervous or whatnot. So I mentioned, I mean, I can go on about the market cap of your other company. And they recently, by the way, they bought their long-term partner, which is a little-known German company called Allianz. So they bought them out. And now I think it's in process, perhaps it's going on. In the non-life insurance, perhaps the next, I don't know, maybe life insurance, both of them, yeah. So which is again a very bold move for an Indian company to buy out its foreign partner. So a lot of things are happening, and even, if all these things are happening and you see this personality, aram se baithe hain, and willing to come for a fireside chat. So thank you very much. So we want to start off by saying, we want to know a little bit about Sanjeev. So I know that you went to a school which was in your colony, I think the Kamalnan Bajaj School, and then you went to St. Vincent, and then you went to COEP. So how has this growing up in Pune, fashioned how has growing up in Pune fashioned, I mean, in your development how has Pune been an influence on you in your upbringing or in your outlook, in your entrepreneurial attitude to business? So we want to know about Pune and you.
Sure. Thanks, Ajit. And let me first thank you for that very kind, exaggerated introduction. Um, no one person does anything. A team is what is responsible for success, and you need a lot of good luck as well and blessings. Ajit is not only a friend for many years, as he said, but also a top economist. So on another day, we could very well have switched roles. Um, Let me also thank Sanjay and the chamber for inviting me over here. I didn't know I was the first. Normally, you save the best for last. So I think for you all, the rest is going to be anticlimax after this. Um, the my childhood was growing up outside of Pune in Akudi. I can see some friends over here, so many know me for many years. Uh, at a school run by a Swiss missionary. So the school was actually Saint Ursula. Then we set up a second school when that school got full, and that became the Bajaj school, where my cousins went and attended, run by the same missionary, still being run by them. So went to a small school where very good quality education, but SSC, HSC board, and where the children came from low middle class and middle class backgrounds. Most of them, their parents were middle level managers, drivers, security guards at Bajaj Auto, Tempo, Thermax, Tata Motors. So we grew up in a very simple environment. My mother was Maharashtrian. She came also from a upper middle class family. She was a teacher before she got married. So we grew up, I would, if I have to say so myself, very grounded. Birthdays used to be going to a friend's house in the Bajaj Auto colony where, you got one chutney sandwich, a samosa, a small little packet you get of those Budhani wafers. And that is how we reciprocated also when we had our birthday party and when they came. So you grew up in a very simple environment and you didn't know any better. Our senior managers all stayed in the city. They wanted to be in Pune. They wanted to be either the old Pune side or camp side. They wanted their children to go to Vincent's and to go to Loyola's and Bishops and stuff like that. But my parents were very clear that if we have to grow up and work and live in India, then we must grow up in the real India. But they ensured that the quality of education was good. So they would not put us into a poor school. And I think that played a defining role for Rajiv, my sister Sunaina, and me. And it was important enough where both my children, who are now 26 and 23, went to the Bajaj school as well and did their 12th from there. And I believe that grounding has helped them and will continue to help them in life.
That's really something. Your children also went there.
That's right. Coming to Pune, my entire life has been spent in Pune. From being outside of Pune to, at that time, my school did not have 11th and 12th. So I went to St. Vincent's, then went to COEP. And for those that have been in that area, from going to, we were more in Modern Cafe and Vaishali than actually going to COEP. But somewhere along the way, you learned something and managed to.
He was a topper, by the way. He's being very modest.
Yeah, no, you get lucky at times. But got through college as well. Pune, as we all know, to me, it's one of the best cities in general to live in India. Probably Bangalore, from a weather perspective, is probably a nicer city than Pune. Both Pune and Bangalore, and we were talking about this a little while ago, have the same problem. As we know, our traffic is horrendous. Lack of cleanliness. That is where each one of us has to stand up and get our political leaders to act. But if we take care of just traffic, just better traffic sense, everybody acts at the traffic light. They're so busy, and everybody wants to get out fast with nowhere to go to. So if we were to just take 5 seconds more at the traffic light, orderly follow the lanes, it amazes me why most of our lanes are not marked. Because then the 2 lane becomes 4. And that's how the traffic jams happen. Simple rules we can put in place, which exist in many other cities in the country. Look at cleanliness. Look at Bhopal and Indore. And because of our involvement, and many of us, including Sanjay in his role with CI as well, not that I'm advertising CI, this is Maratha Chamber, but very clean cities, very clean, very methodical waste disposal systems, and each one of us has to do that. The city cannot do that. We have to play our own responsible role. I think these two things, if we
When
do,
you were growing up, the city was much cleaner and more traffic was more
see,
disciplined.
traffic was less.
Much less, yeah.
You know, sometimes when I talk, people tell me it's your scooters and motorcycles that are responsible for the traffic. But it's not the vehicle; it is the user of the vehicle that has to change their way of doing things. Uh, but yes, this city is actually a great blend of youth because of all our colleges that we have, because of the kind of businesses we have, not only the traditional manufacturing businesses where we've got, whether it's the Kirloskars, we have the Firodias, we have Kalyanis, we have people like us, then of course Tata Motors, and so many, all the international people that are there. But also the way of life. We have a very cosmopolitan way of life. Look at the places that you can go out to in the evening. So I think just a little bit of improvement can go a long way in further making this one of the top cities to live with.
Yes, yes, indeed. I mean, Pune, as they say, at a size of 7 million, is of its size, is the only city in the world which is not a state capital or a provincial capital. So, just one more thing about the city or your Bajaj name. You know, by the way, I should mention because it may not come up later. He mentioned his school days and the fact that it's really remarkable. The parents and they continue that tradition of sending their kids to the Bajaj school. But he also is a national level basketball player. I don't know how many of you know that. And that also seems to be a Bajaj tradition because his uncle, Neeraj Bajaj, was actually the number one table tennis player in the country. So and I think you are involved with the Olympic gold quest also. So you have a sports side.
Yes, that's
that
right.
passion.
That's right. My uncle Neeraj is the one who represents
And
us.
that's another thing maybe we can come back when we talk about your. So I want to just quickly dwell on this. The fact that the Bajaj name is a very big name for Pune. You know, Pune is a very proud of the fact that, the Bajaj legacy. But you actually, despite the sort of big name on your shoulder, you actually cut a different path. I'm not, with due respect to Rajiv Bajaj and everybody, I must say that Bajaj was Bajaj Auto at some point, and there was auto finance. So the finance business came from, I guess, finance. I may be wrong, but financing the auto purchases and so on. So those were the early beginnings of financial services. But you have now $100 billion market cap. I mean, so much spectacular success in insurance. We saw that video. So how did you cut I mean, despite the Bajaj legacy, you actually cut a completely different path. I don't want to say Marathi Mantana Shunyatun create kila, not from zero, from scratch, but really more or less it's under your watch. And the financial capital of India is Mumbai, not Pune. But here you have this fantastic thing you have created. So how did you cut a different path out of Bajaj legacy?
See, the very important thing about zeros is where the one comes. But no, I spent over 10 years in Bajaj Auto in various roles. I'm an engineer, having gone to COEP. I also have an MBA. And after spending many years, I did my MBA, came back in 97. And then till 2007, I was in Bajaj Auto in various roles in finance and then running exports as well.
You're the CFO of the company, right?
Yeah, we didn't have CFO as a term in those days, but I worked under a couple of CFOs and then eventually got onto that role and then got bored of being on the sidelines, so took on the exports role to build up exports in Bajaj Auto, did that between 2004 and 7. And remember, these were the heydays of Indian economic growth. India started growing at 8, 9%. And it was very obvious in any developing country that whatever the real economy grows at, the financial services economy has to grow at 2 to 3 times that rate because you're catering to so many different segments of the real economy. And I think that's part of the reason that our success and our size is much bigger than a Bajaj Auto because we become relevant for so many more sectors and consumers. Other than, of course, having successfully built those businesses. So around 2005-6 is when a large number of our institutional investors started telling us, and Bajaj Auto was the largest company in the group by far. So Bajaj Auto Finance, as it was called in those days, or our insurance companies, had been spawned off through Bajaj Auto. Bajaj Auto was the owner of that. And our investors kept telling us that, these financial services companies are small right now, but we think if you run it well in 10, 20 years, they will become large. And then as a listed company, if you only have Bajaj Auto, it gets very muddled for us. Because some of us may only want exposure to the auto business. Some may only want to the financial services business. Valuing it all in one company becomes tough. So can you think of splitting it up? To my father, I think there was also an opportunity. Rajiv was very well settled. He's 3 years older than me. He was very well settled in the auto business. And he saw the opportunity for two boys to do two different things. And I voluntarily took up to run financial services. And that's how the journey started. I was very fortunate at that time that an uncle of mine, so my mother's sister's husband called Nanu Pamnani was a career city banker who had spent 40 years in Citibank. He was one of the youngest CEOs globally when he became CEO at the age of 33 in India in 82. Became CEO of Philippines. At one time, he ran operations for Citibank in 100 countries based out of London. So he had tremendous experience through Citibank. He had just retired 2 years before that, joined the Bajaj Auto board. So he agreed to become me and my team's mentor and help us build Bajaj Finance and then later on with the insurance companies as well. And the the first thing that I knew when I decided to move to financial services is that I knew nothing about financial services. So it's important that know what your starting point is. So I knew what that meant was I had to build a great team. I needed a mentor. Luckily, I had a mentor in Nanu. Third, I remember in 2007-8, Bajaj Finance's profit after tax must have been 30 or 40 crores. Today, I think every day we make more than that, much more than that. So we were very
It's $1
small.
billion, right? Must be $1 billion now.
So we were very small, which meant that we had to build this up steadily, but it also meant that you couldn't get much worse. Your starting point is so low. So I was 37. So it was a great age to take on that entrepreneurial risk. And to me, the entrepreneurial journey was what was exciting. And maybe we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Is that entire journey and the culture that we built across our financial services businesses to try to be the financial life cycle partner for every Indian. From your early years, when you start working, you need a loan for your home, for your car, children's education. As you start buying assets, you need to protect those assets, so you need insurance. As you start saving some money, you want to start investing it wisely. That's where our entire wealth management and asset management side of the business comes in. We have methodically, over a 15-year period, built out each of these businesses. And we now are
You have
there.
something like 5 or 9 crore customers now? I mean,
Yeah. So we are just in Bajaj Finance. We've crossed 100 million customers at a group level. If we remove overlap and all, we're probably at 150 million or so. Out of which, on the Bajaj FinServ app, we have 80 million customers already.
so that makes you bigger than most banks in India, with 10 crore customers or maybe 12, 15 crores. And I think you've made a target of 225 crores, 250 million customers in the next 3-4 years. So that is actually you're pretty much a bank. So my question to you is, somebody may say Bajaj Finance is the biggest bank in India, which is not a bank. I know that you applied for a banking license during the second phase when the RBI opened the application. So is there a plan for the financial services? I know this is not a business strategy session. This is not on CNBC, but just is there something that eventually will become a bank?
So firstly, I must say the regulator tells us you're not a bank. Don't say you're a bank. Because we used to say that we are a non-bank with the strategy of a bank. They said, no, you cannot say that. You'll mislead people. So we are not a bank. We are a non-bank because you're recording this. But when we started building Bajaj Finance, 2007, the successful NBFCs, you had Chola, you had Shriram Finance, I think you had Muthoot, these were all monolines. And the basic belief at that time was that NBFCs were good in one or two areas. In one or two areas, they got really good and better than banks, and maybe in areas that banks didn't want to enter. And they were good in the Mufussul areas, in the big cities, and all the banks are there. So they were good in the secondary, tertiary towns that banks have not reached. And that's why you were either regional or you were monoline. And And we never looked at it that way. What we basically said is we have a license to lend. And there are some restrictions, there are some things we cannot do, which only a bank can do. So other than keeping those things aside, why can't we give the best possible products and services to our customers? The fact that it's an NBFC license and not a bank license is theory. The customer doesn't care whether he's taking a home loan from HDFC or Bajaj or ICICI.
That's true.
He wants transparency, he wants simplicity, he wants the best possible rate.
In fact, our finance minister made a statement today or yesterday that she wants NBFCs to cover 50% of the credit needs of the country.
Correct. And NBFCs in the last 15 years, from covering about 8 to 10% of the needs, are already covering now close to 32, 33%.
Yes.
So we systematically went across consumer lending because that's where we saw a big gap in India between consumer aspirations were rising. People were buying more televisions, phones, washing machines, and
But
credit.
you have a competitive handicap with banks. You don't have access to low-cost funds the way they do, deposit funds.
Very, very true. At least in the early days. So we realized that there was a consumer demand for consumer products. We realized that as India was growing, this was only going to increase. We realized that credit card penetration in India was very poor. So for most people, it meant spending their hard-earned cash to buy the television, etc., etc. Now, at the same time, as you said, we were not competitive in our cost of funds. So what we did was we went to the Sonys, Samsungs, Philips of the world. This was in 2007. And we told them that, your product costs 20, 30, 40,000 rupees. We'll take some down payment, 10, 20% from the customer. So why don't we offer the rest of it interest-free to the customer for 6, 8, 10, 12 months. Person for a 20,000, 30,000 loan doesn't need 3 years, 4 years. If your EMI is around 1,500 rupees, 2,000 rupees, for anybody who's middle class, that's manageable. And after many months of trying, we finally, and what we told them is that you all spend hundreds of crores in all your marketing budgets, advertisement. You don't even know how much of it works. Give us some of that budget. And in our case, you only spend when a product gets sold, because only then you're going to give me the interest. So we managed to crack, if I remember in those years, Samsung first. Because Samsung, 2004 Olympics, the US Olympics, Samsung became the brand ambassador. That's when it got globally known. And they started becoming number one in many countries around the world in televisions. But in India, LG was ahead of them. So we cracked Samsung. And that's where our zero-cost EMI product started.
But this consumer financing, sorry, I'm interrupting, but this is interesting. How come you are willing to take that risk? Because you are, of course, taking on the loan. You're taking on that. The consumer will pay you in EMIs.
Yes.
But you're taken on a big risk and you have no collateral.
Yeah. So that's another story, because very clearly we told the manufacturer, you will not take the risk. You will get your money, and the risk is ours naturally. And that's why we used to negotiate. It used to be a 5-6% discount for them. So we said it's very easily affordable. You guys are doing 20-30% discounts all the time. And that's how we started. So a big handicap versus banks, cost of funds got negated, because to the customer it was zero interest. And we earned that from the manufacturer. Then came the issue of risk. Now 2003 or 4 is when India's first credit bureau, CIBIL, started. Even by 2007, we realized that banks were not using CIBIL. They were using their own internal benchmarks to assess credit. Because consumer credit, hardly anybody was doing. You were mainly doing it for SMEs, for corporates and stuff. So we started leveraging technology very early. And by then we had CIBIL, you had which was TransUnion, you had one or two Equifax, you had one or two others. We realized that in the big cities, in the top 100 cities, at that time, nearly 40% of the customers that came for a loan had a credit score. So we had an automatic first step credit assessment. Prior to that, if you went and you wanted a loan to buy a television, and let's say you went to Das or to Vijay Sales or so over here, that time the Chromas and all were only just starting. So there were more individual stores. What the bank employee, if you were sitting there, used to say, okay, give me your name, address, And then the next day he would send a runner boy to your colony and check कि अच्छा ये इधर रहता है क्या, कितने सालों से रहता है, अच्छा बर्ताव कैसे है, रात को कितने बजे घर आता है. You know, if you're saying, how do you establish credit assessment, risk assessment? Then they would come back and say, हाँ ये ठीक लगता है. Then the bank you call you and give you loan. So we said, you know, it is a very dirty process. When we went to the showrooms and stood there, we saw that middle class families would come in the evenings or on weekends, husband, wife, two kids. They saw this nice, beautiful TV. There was a movie going on, or sports going on. And we said, why can't we create excitement to them by saying, we will give you this TV right away. We will install it at your house. We will also bundle in a Tata Sky or Airtel DTH. And you can watch a movie or you can watch the match in the evening. So you are changing the experience for the customer.
It's not only credit scores, it's actually aspiration.
Exactly. Now to do that, it took us 18 months. So what did it mean also that now how are we going to leverage technology? We are a small company. So we first realized that whatever technology we build has to get scaled up. I remember in those days, we used to do 10,000 loans a month. And we had done work, we had done a break-even analysis that you have to get to at least 20,000 to break even. So we were losing money at that time. So we said that we can't afford to spend hundreds of crores on technology. So we identified, we said we will go to cloud very early on. We were one of the earliest companies to get onto the cloud. At that time, Microsoft was just starting its cloud. And there was an American company which is $250 billion now. I know the founder CEO very well, Mark Benioff, company called Salesforce. Some of you may have heard of it. So Salesforce had started their CRM product on the cloud. We worked with them over 18 months and created global joint IPR to convert that into a loan origination cloud-based product.
Yeah, that's very early. I mean, we are the leaders, pioneers in that. Yeah.
And which was initially available on our employees, salespeople's computers. Eventually, it's last 10 years on your mobile phones or your handheld devices.
You templatize the process of approving loans, is it?
So we templatized it. We made it scalable by making it cloud enabled. We made it physical. We made the physical world redundant because the minute you had it on your computer and after that on your phone, we could go to the smallest of towns. So at that time we were in 100 towns. We are now in 4,500 cities and towns around the country. But for us, it's only variable cost. And we started building the risk systems. So we were initially using these credit bureaus. Then what happened is by 2011 or so, 2-3 years later, we had customers coming back and saying that, sir, 6 months later I came, I first bought a TV, now I'm buying a washing machine, or now I'm buying a mobile phone. You are again asking me for that same data. Achha, that 18 months it took us, we brought down the 3-day loan approvals because no longer you have to run to the guy's colony 2-3 hours. And we were able to deliver the TV and install it. And we said we will install it for you also. So we were able to install it at their house, television, washing machine, whatever it be. So then customers started coming and saying, you know me because I bought from you earlier, but you still treat me as a new customer. You know my credit history. You're still asking me for all this information. We said, very correct. So we asked RBI that, will you give us the license to issue a credit card? They said, no, we cannot give to you. You're not a bank. We said, okay. So we said, let us create a virtual ID card. And we call it our EMI card. So effectively, each customer got an ID saying that, do you want to come and buy again? And because we give nothing for free. We give for free, nobody gives you value. So we charge whatever at that time, 200, 300, 400 rupees for that card. And we said, this is your card which links you to our database. Next time you want something, come with this card and we will recognize you. Then to make sure the card is operable. Now, when you go to any of the stores and you swipe your credit card, you use those machines. Those machines are run by 2-3 large firms, Atos, Pine Labs, and these guys. They're all Visa, MasterCard. So we went to these guys. These are Indian companies. And we said that, let us build a software where your machines will swipe our cards. And today we have small number of cards, but this will become large. And they bought it. I don't know when. Maybe we gave them some money.
This is called innovation, which hops, skips, and jumps regulation.
Exactly. So they agreed. So in another year, suddenly,
RBI was happy about it.
No, so this was okay because we were not touching the credit and the payment system. We were not touching the Visa, MasterCard system. We were just creating ID. It was a software to identify ID. Suddenly now, in a year's time, every store that had a card machine and of these 2 3 companies could read our card as well. So when you went to the store, you swiped your card, the sales guy knew you immediately, he knew you had what you had bought, he knew your credit history, and he was able to instantaneously approve a loan. So the 3 hour came down to 3 minutes. It is today 30 seconds.
This is how you
where
spread to 4,000 or 5,000 cities.
And then we made the card virtual. So we spread to 4,500 towns. Today there are 40 million of these cards. Each card would have a approval for between 1 and 40 different products. We then went on to the app. So we have an app with all this built in. It's called the Bajaj FinServe app.
Now when you get those phone calls, sir, मैं Bajaj Finance से बात कर रहा हूँ, आपको loan चाहिए. You know where it started. This 40 million.
Which also I must tell you, because I see enough of those memes also. And yes, sometimes it is our guys bothering them. That's why we started 2 years ago with this do not call service on our website and on the app. So you can message us and we will then not disturb you. But what happens is that part of a business comes through distributors. Now, we have a centralized calling and recording infrastructure for making those calls.
But they say I'm calling from Bajaj. You know, that's a misuse of...
No, we routinely bust fraudulent call centers, and Dina would know because of his earlier role. We routinely bust, and we have bust fraudulent call centers of 600, 800 employees with proper automated calling infrastructure who will pretend to be Bajaj Finance, pretend to be ICICI, pretend to be XYZ Bank, trying to sell you loans, but saying that, you have to give us 2,000 rupees upfront as a fee, and then we'll get started, and then you lose your 2,000 rupees.
Right. No, this is, very fascinating. We could go on. Really, it's fantastic. In fact, every time there have been pioneers and first movers. I wanted to quickly ask this, but the fact is, we'll skip this part. That despite all this growth, now you're seeing 10 crore customers. Your NPA ratio, the bad loan ratio is just less than 1%, right? Which is a dream for banks. But let's talk about the future a bit. That you come down to 3 minutes. Now I'm sure robots are looking at the loan approval process. So where do you think this is going? What is the future of finance in terms of application of technology, AI, and speed?
So till last year, what we used to talk when we used to talk to our investors and others is that we used to say, everybody talks about fintechs. But what are fintechs? Most of them are startups that are leveraging technology in very smart ways, but are mostly doing distribution of financial products. If you think of fintech as a company that has the capability of financial services and technology, that is a true fintech. And really, that's what Bajaj Finance is. Then in November 22, I think, the world woke up to ChatGPT. And you suddenly started seeing the power of Gen AI. By, I think, Feb or March 23, our top 200 employees, we had got them to go through a course of AI. Because we always believe that to adopt technology and understand its relevance, it must happen top down. If technology is relegated to the IT team or to some youngsters, they will come up with great ideas, but then the adoption does not happen, the scalability doesn't happen. So we started doing that, and we realized the power of AI, at least in businesses like ourselves, which lend themselves to technology and data. After we started using the cloud a lot from 2009-10, we also took a unified look at data. See, when you look at any large NBFC bank or even manufacturing companies, we capture a lot of data, customer data, service data, you capture quality data, production data, external competitive data. But this data all sits in different pockets. The data does not sit in one large database because those softwares were not conceptualized to handle large data. So 2014 is when we started working on what was called in those times as a data lake. So it was not a database, it was not a data warehouse, this was the next level, where you had to migrate data, which meant your data also sat in different formats. It had to be cleaned, it had to be migrated all into one common place, but you also had to build the right pipelines for every future bit of data coming in that would flow seamlessly into this data lake. Then, of course, all the security, cyber security, governance, concerns, usage of that, privacy, all those are technology layers that you have to keep adding to it. So we had to get our data organized. We did that over a few years. And with that now, we today are running over 250 AI projects. Um, in the last year itself in Bajaj Finance and in our insurance company, so we have improved our service center productivity when customers are calling for queries by over 30%. I'll give you a simple example.
So even customers are now getting answered by robotic processes.
Yeah, yeah. So when a customer approaches us with a service query, he could send a SMS, he could get onto WhatsApp, he could get onto our app, he could call us, he could send an email. So there are different channels of communication. All that goes to our service call centers. Now, let's take an example of a customer calling in from anywhere in the country using multiple languages. What we find is that the call center executive at first go, getting the customer query right used to be about 55, 56% of the time. Because sometimes the accent they cannot understand. Sometimes the question is not framed the right way. Sometimes the call center executive does not have an IQ of 150, you know. So the getting the understanding the customer requirement right first time was just 56%. Once you understood it, then the answer was almost 98, 99% right, because the system threw up from our database the answer. As we've started training our Gen AI tool, we are already up to 85% getting the question right the first
But
time.
Sanjeev, one quick question. This automation, is it maintaining your customer centricity and empathy? Because customers also need empathy from your executives. But a machine doesn't have empathy. I mean, does it? Or...
So you see, you have Anand over here who knows a lot more about this than I. So whether a machine has empathy or no, he's in a better position to answer. But from what I have seen our tool do, it can definitely mimic empathy. Machine does not have empathy. Machine has no emotion. But what is emotion when we are talking? It is the words, it is the expression, it is the tonality that the machine is able to do. So today, for the last year now, the other thing that we tried was, we have a lot of existing customers who want another loan. Say they want a personal loan, and they call us. A subset of that, because we do about 4.5 million loans a month of all types. So where we used to do 10,000 loans a month, we now do about 15,000 a day. In that, since February of last year, we are now processing, as I said, a pilot where for the subset is also Bajaj colors, but this is BLEU. So Blue will call the customer back, introduce itself as a Gen AI product based on how the customer is talking, speak in Hindi, English or English, and negotiate a loan, including the tenor, the terms, do that. But the closure then happens by a human just from a legality.
This is very important. I mean, I don't know if Sajeev, anybody has told you this. What you're also doing is actually ensuring digital and AI literacy of the public at large, because they know how to now start interacting with you're telling them that the Gen AI person is talking to them.
Very much so. And you'll be surprised how comfortable.
So this is also a social service of kind. You know, people get it comfortable.
And the voice completely human sounding, Indian accent. We will move now from 2 languages to 10 languages in the next 12, 18 months or so. And we are now doing about 20, 25,000 loans a month just using this to take it up to a particular
just for the information
level.
of people here, you know, the retail, one of the macro indicators is retail loans to GDP ratio. So India used to be at 10, 15%. Now we are at 30%, but still the growth potential is huge, because in developed countries, the retail, you know, credit to GDP ratio is very high. So this is the path that you're taking. I want to switch over to, because this is very fascinating, but we have limited time. So I wanted to cover the philanthropy, because Bajaj and philanthropy go together. I know so many examples where the Bajaj people have said, maybe Sanjeev and his other people in the family, please don't mention our name. This is a very sophisticated medical institute. I know about a hospital where there's a very complicated and expensive equipment, and one of the conditions was this, please don't mention Bajaj. So there is philanthropy which is done in Bajaj's name, and there's philanthropy which is done by Bajaj but without any name. So we want to know a little bit about your philanthropy philosophy.
Sure. So before that, let me just give you one more data point. I believe that a lot of the work that we do, so we see many of us are businessmen over here. Our primary role is to build successful businesses. But my great-grandfather used to say that, so Gandhiji used to tell him, because Gandhiji had adopted him as his fifth son, so Jamnalal Bajaj, and Gandhiji used to tell him, you're a businessman. Instead, he used to be the biggest contributor to the freedom movement. All the money that he generated from business, other than what he needed to reinvest, used to be given back. He was treasurer of the Congress of those times till he passed away. And Gandhiji used to tell him that, doing business is not bad, because otherwise how will wealth get created in the country? But part of the wealth that you're creating, you must of course live a good life, your family will want to live a good life, but try and give back to society with that wealth. And that is something that a lot of people do, and it has stayed with us as well. But how do you translate that into your business? Now, for us, with the consumer lending that we do, and the fact that we've managed today, we do loans as low as 7,000 rupees. We have payments, we have Bajaj Pay. I don't think anybody here uses it, but please start using it. It's very good. In the last 5 years, we have brought over 25 million Indians into the formal financial system by giving them their first loan. So taking them away from the local money lender and helping them with their first loan, helping them build their credit history so that the next loan becomes easier, but not as charity. For us, yes, we earn less margin on that, but that's also business. And this is one way
I want
in
to
which you
mention
translate business for social good.
I want to mention, see, opening Jandan accounts is just opening an account in a bank. Yeah. But the real financial services that people need is actually a loan. It's credit needs. So this is the way you deepen the formal financial sector. Sorry.
Now, so coming now purely to what we do on the philanthropy side, it's something that the group has been doing. The group in business now this year will be our 100 years. So group has been doing it for a very long time. And to Ajit's point, I must say till a couple of years ago, again, my great-grandfather used to say that when you're doing good, you should not be talking about it. So we never spoke about it. It started having the opposite impact, where other than the older politicians or bureaucrats who knew us, so they knew what we did, many others we started meeting in the last 5, 7, 8, 10 years, started saying, "Aap log to kuch karte nahi ho. This group does this, that group does that," because our name is nowhere. So initially we kept ignoring it. Then I must say, as a family, we decided that, okay, in some places at least we will put the name. So because otherwise it is having the opposite negative impact of trying to, be low-key. More importantly, while we worked in many areas, about 3 or 4 years ago, in a more organized manner at the group level, we said that, India has so many needs. Let's try and evaluate these to see, is there something specific that is of national importance that can be done at scale that other groups are not doing? We know everything government does, but private sector is not doing, and which we can associate ourselves with. So we identified 3 or 4 areas, and finally we narrowed down on skilling, saying that, given our demographics, every year, I think between 10 and 15 million Indians are ready for new jobs. But one, as an economy, we have to create those jobs. But second, we have to make sure that our youth are job ready. Unfortunately, most of them come through BA, BCom colleges. Nobody goes to college. Nobody learns anything. And they're not ready. We took skilling as a significant initiative. And as of last year, we under a common brand called Bajaj Beyond. How can we go beyond this? How can we go beyond our day-to-day lives to do something more? And with a major focus on skilling, we have committed over the next 5 years, this was last year, we committed that we will skill over 20 million youth in this 5-year period. So 2 crore youth, and we've committed about 5,000 crore to that.
So this is both this is both your financial arm as well as the manufacturing part.
Overall at the group level, but naturally it's the financial arm and Bajaj Auto that contributes, and the family charities contribute.
Actually, I mean, the enhancement of India's human capital is the most important determinant of long-term sustainable and inclusive growth. So we are going to, it's okay to take some questions. So we will have, we'll take some questions from you, but just two more questions from me. He mentioned, in his typical modest style, and he's always very particular about that the Bajaj success is because of its team And he has at least, I think, 5 or 6 CEOs who work with Sanjeev. But I am told that all of them are very strong-headed, strong in personalities. So how is it like, how do you handle all this? I mean, I know that they're not here in this room. That it's how is your style doesn't look like it's
See,
dictatorial, but how do you handle this?
the fastest
strong-headed?
chariot has both strong horses, but also the chariot guy who has the reins in his hand.
Well, okay. I mean, it's not an easy thing, but it's all these people have different ideas, but they all come together when it comes to
No, no. So let me give you, it's an important point. Right from 2007, my uncle Nanu used to tell us that as we grow our businesses, each time we need to hire somebody, and initially it was more from the outside. Now it is mostly internal. We will pay the best that we can afford to at that time and try and get the best person. So we are very clear that we must get very good people from outside. What we look at is not just person's knowledge and experience, but attitude. And there were a few key drivers with which we build our long-term business strategy. One is focus on building long-term, sustainable, and profitable businesses. And each of these are important long-term. So you're not building business for the short term. We're not here to build something for 5 years and sell it off. Nothing wrong in doing that, but that's not our focus. Second is balance growth and profit. There will be years where you will see higher risk, you have to scale growth back. There'll be years where you will need to get more profitable because you need to reinvest. And doing that is as much art as it is science. That is the first thing. Second, we were very clear with financial services. We are in a very commoditized industry. And that's why we had to focus on innovation. That's why taking the 3-day loan to 3 hours to 3 minutes and then instantaneous. Because then you're changing the game itself. Because if we just play on price, a State Bank, ICICI, HDFC can always play on price as well. So second was, how do you focus on disruptive innovation? Third is, we were small, there were big players there. So we knew that every rupee that we could save would either benefit the customer, would benefit our partners, our employees, or the shareholder. And from my auto days, the experience of lean manufacturing came in. I mean, last year we issued nearly 45 million loans and 60 million insurance policies. So it's like a factory that works at the back end. Our consumer loan, 10 years ago, the operating cost of one consumer loan used to be 1,200 rupees. That is now down to something like 800 rupees. 400 rupees if we are saving on 40 million loans a year, you can imagine what it adds up to, right? So focus on lean operations. Fourth, that was again very important to me. Coming from a promoter family, I had the flexibility where within a broad set of guidelines that the board had set, I could entrepreneurially build my business. And that's where the point comes to the successful CEOs, how we work together. We have tried to replicate that same culture, not only at the CEO level, but at least 3 levels below, where we define boundary conditions within which people can go, they can hire, they can build their businesses. There are, of course, certain horizontals on technology, on governance, on HR, but very high level of empowerment with accountability. We run monthly reviews of each of our companies in a lot of detail, but people decide their plans. And because they are focused on the long term, their reward systems are aligned, we have leaders who will slow their business down where they see the risk reward balance is going out of whack, because they know the year after or 2 years after they can come back. Now, that's not easy for a professional to do because your bonus that year is going to be lower. So that's become part of our culture. And the fifth always is work with a high level of ethics. Everybody says that. We all end up cutting corners because it suits us. I remember right in the beginning in 2009, in my life insurance company, one of our senior sales guys came to me and said that, we are getting so-and-so public sector bank to distribute our insurance. That was a big deal to get a banker partner. But, the chairman of the bank wants so much upfront payment and so much percentage of business done every year. And I just looked at him. And he said, no, I know what your answer is going to be. But this is going to be, at that time, 100 crores of business from one relationship every year. So I want you to know you're losing that. And I told him, my brand, my credibility is worth a lot more than that. But you have to be willing to say no. Otherwise, we all get tempted to say, "Is baar kar lete hain. Next time, I'll be bigger. I can afford to say no." Knowing to say no is very important because today now we are over 100,000 employees. The direction they see from the top is what they emulate, especially with a high level of empowerment. And as we combine these five things together, we have one simple saying in each of our companies. We perform for today and at the same time we transform for tomorrow. So we run over 100 projects of change in each of our companies, depending on the size of the company. So we are continuously building a new tomorrow while we are each working for today's performance.
Fantastic. So that requires a big applause from you. We will take just a few questions, limited time. So if you want to ask a specific question of Sanjeev, yeah, Dina, can we just get the mic to him, please?
Sanjeev, I had the fortune to work with you and most of your leaders. And one thing which I always admired was the curiosity and eagerness to look at innovations. And I've hosted you guys at the TCS offices in Bay Area quite a few times. The question I wanted to ask was specifically around, you mentioned Nanu as a mentor, as a person who started. But one of the things which was very critical was his reviews and the rigor that he had in pushing the leaders to achieve a different level. So give us a little bit on that aspect of growing the business and growing it the right way.
So Dina, let me just expand that to say that we have how on one hand we encourage entrepreneurship, but we also institutionalize the way we run the business. Mid-year, so between August and October, each of our companies goes into what we call as a long-range strategy session. For the large companies, it would be 3-4 days. For the smaller companies, it will be maybe a day or so. Work starts 60 days before. And what we do is we tell people, plan out what you want to do the next 5 years. We used to initially say 3 years, but we realize that when we say 3 years, people get constrained by what they can do. We say, 3 saal mein nahi hoga. See, in 5 years, Facebook went from X to 100 times X. So when you put a time frame that is long enough, it really challenges people to open their mind and think of crazy things that they can do. So we end up with, so people start working 60 days before, and over 4 days for the large companies, we will go through 100 ideas. Each idea has to be baked with sufficient numbers and execution plan. And about 60-70% of that get accepted. Some require 6 months work, some may require a year or 2 years work if it's a big technology related change. So this mid-year strategy becomes really our 5-year roadmap of how we want to build the business.
Yeah, that gentleman with that coat, black coat. Yeah.
No, one thing before you ask, I'm not finished. After that, what we realized was that if we have to build some of these strategy plans, and if some of it is going to go into execution in the next year, do we have the manpower for it? So we go into what we call as an organizational LRS. We do a organizational review. So each business would do that, each function would do that to say with HR, do we have the right manpower in a 6-month window, 12-month window, and 18-month window? And otherwise we go and hire so that we are ready. So that happens typically by November, December. By January, the first year of that 5-year plan goes into our budgeting process for the next year. And by between early Feb and by middle of March, each of our companies has finished their budgets, what we call as our annual operating plans, AOPs for the next year, with full budget, manpower, costs, and these are all divided monthly and weekly into actionables. And then on a monthly basis, we review that. At the same time, we know that the world is changing. So the plan is a plan, but there will be deviation based on actuals. As long as the people are consciously able to explain that, that's fine. So that's the way the rigor has come into the system, while still allowing within that, the plans are all made by those individual leaders, not by us.
And you attend all those reviews yourself? Do you attend?
Yes. So I attend
a very busy calendar for you.
Every review, and it's only in the last 12 months that I've now, as some of our senior executives are moving into FinServ, into a more senior role with me. and they're doing more of that review. So I've cut my review time, where I used to, with the large companies, do 2 days reviews. Now I've brought that down to half a day. Smaller companies is a little less, but I still do that so that I know enough. But I also need to release my time because there are other things I need to do, which I need to take time
Thank you.
out for.
Thanks. Yeah. Quickly.
Hi, Ajit. Hi, Sanjeev. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's working.
Yes. Okay. Sanjeev, your family, of course, has built very respected businesses, right? And you are, I guess, the custodian for the future generation. You mentioned perform today and transform tomorrow. So when you say, I guess you're balancing between tradition and transformation, is there any consciously a tradition that you see yourself leaving behind?
Do I see leaving?
A tradition that you're seeing leaving behind, the family tradition, because you're moving from tradition to transformation all the time, right? And you have actually set out yourself out of the main line of business from manufacturing to completely a service financial industry.
See, we get to work every day saying, like Bezos says, it's day one. So I think we have a long way to go ourselves before we can set anything for the future. But my own learning has been that with the right group of people together, with hard work, with the right attitude and approach, and with strong support from your board or whoever it be, if it's a family business from the family, and of course with some luck, you can do anything. I mean, as I said, I'm an engineer that thought I would spend my life riding motorcycles and making motorcycles and selling motorcycles, and I'm in financial services now. So it means each one of us can do whatever we want, and our next generation can do whatever they want. But you have to have the passion, you have to have the hard work, you have to have the perseverance, and of course, you have to have some luck.
Yeah.
Are there any family?
Sorry. Let's take one more question, please. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samir, and thank you so much. It's been a pleasure listening to your journey as well as your family's history and background. The question is around a MSME, since we are at this gathering over here. I would say a perennial startup. We've been like a 15-year-old organization. And I must say, by the way, this is two incidents that happened with me. Once we wrote an email to Steve Ballmer in Microsoft, and we got a response. Similarly, we connected with Sanjeev over here, sir, and he did connect us to Asfar from your team in HR. So I must say that, accessibility is very important. So that is something I want to bring to this group over here because it does give encouragement to MSMEs and startups that, okay, you can take a bold step and reach out to the founders. Now, the other question, or rather the question is that, I tried getting into various groups of Bajaj Finserv, BALIC, BAGIC, and all that. So while I got a good response in some areas, the other responses were like, oh yeah, okay, we'll try maybe next year or things like that. So for an MSME, what would you, we work with the Aditya Birla Group, we work with Tata, Tata Motors is our customer. So we want to know within Bajaj, how you kind of make sure that your philosophy and your ethos, working with startups, encouraging them, looking for innovation from performance to transformation. How do you ensure that percolates all the way down? Because I felt that obviously you can't do everything every time.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So one, depending on what kind of a startup it is, we run through the year, some of our larger companies run hackathons where we invite new startups and ideas to come. Beyond that, as I said, we also work with a very high level of empowerment. Across our companies, we work with a few hundred startups in India and a bunch of them overseas. But naturally, there are a million others offering the same or better services. You can't work with everyone. So I can understand the challenge. I would say you have to just work hard and find the opportunity.
Okay. So we need to wrap it up. I think, no, we'll wrap it. Okay. One last question.
Rajiv is a dear friend.
Good evening. Nice hearing you, Sanjeev. You were talking about technology and digitization. So on your app, typically, how many of your customers are using your app? How many of them are transacting on it? How many times in a month? And what is the value which is going through the app? And how do you see digital in financial services, the digital growth in financial services?
So we have multiple apps. Our broking business has its app, our insurance company has its app, but the largest usage is the Bajaj Finance app, which is called Bajaj FinServe. We have now about 80 million customers on it. Monthly active users is about 35 million customers. Last year, we did about 35,000 crores of business through the app, just the app, which is about 11-12% of the total business we did last year.
It's amazing. Yeah. If you reach 25 crores, it's like almost reaching 1/4 of adult India, in a few years. So now we are going to wrap it up, but I cannot resist the temptation to ask the last question. So this is not a rapid fire, but two things. One is looking back. This is something. Now imagine you're age 25. What is the kind of advice you wish you had then? So this is not, it's just a hypothetical thing. That looking back, nowadays you see 25-year-olds doing fantastic things, and people often say, "Oh, I wish I had this thing when I was 25." So is there something that you wish you had learned or got at the age of 25?
Well, not really at 25, because I must say that at that age, I was fortunate to have a very good educational experience. And at 25, actually, I went to Harvard. I came back at 27. But I would say that, so my father was many things, but he was conservative.
He also went to Harvard, right?
He went to Harvard as well. My daughter is at Harvard. He was also protective as any parent was. So I think even at 37, when I decided to make the move, he was very happy that I was taking that entrepreneurial jump. But he was also very nervous because now success or failure was directly attributable to me. I think we need to take more risk early on, but with the right amount of experience. If I had 25, I had started to do that, I probably would have failed, though I think today's 25-year-olds are much smarter than what I was at that age. We have to encourage youngsters, and especially where we can support them. And today the entire angel, VC, private equity industry is there also to support them, to experiment early. We are very entrepreneurial as a culture. Get into your entrepreneurism, fail early. See, we failed multiple times. What we see today is our success. You don't see our failure. But each time we failed, we learned and we got better going forward. And I think that is very important.
Celebrate
Try
failure.
early.
Yeah,
Celebrate. Experience failure. See, if you have not failed, you're not pushing the boundaries of what is ordinary to try something extraordinary. Only when you push that, at times you will fail, but there will be the other times where you will create something truly new.
Fantastic. Thank you. अगर आपने fail नहीं किया तो क्या जिया? Anyway, Sanjeev, really fantastic session, and we are very thankful that you could be here, and very refreshing, very frank and free in his typical style. There's much, much more. What you saw is the tip of the iceberg, but we have limited time, so we have to wrap it up. So once again, please, a very big thank you to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really an insightful evening for me, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of you. May I request Mr. Kirloskar to please come up on stage to felicitate our special guest today. And I think, we can all stand up and give him the standing ovation, which I have been wanting to give him from the time he walked up on stage. Thank you, Dr. Ranade, for really conducting this session so beautifully. Over to the President for the closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I was told that I would have to give these closing remarks. Sanjeev, you started out by saying saving the best for last, right? But when I thought of who to ask first, I remembered some slogan. I'm an old man. You just can't beat a Bajaj. Right? So I think going forward, it's going to be very difficult to top this. You told us about your story. the way Bajaj Finance has grown. And what I liked was you shared everything so candidly and so modestly. So thank you so much um, for this conversation with us. I think two things struck me, two numbers. 25 million, what is it, 25 million Indians who got their first loan from you and in the last 5 years, and also the 2 crore number for skilling individuals. I think that's a great, two great achievements, and really all of us should thank you for that. Ajit, thank you. You're also an engineer, right? So you know engineers can do anything, especially if they know where to put the 0 and where to put the 1. And one thing we know that Sanjeev hasn't done is financial engineering. He's built everything properly and ethically. So I just wanted to wrap up by saying that, and thank you again. We're still going to chase your brother, elder brother, and we hope that all of you will come back for future sessions of Fireside Chats. We're trying to get people who have achieved a lot in their lives. And I hope you'll be just as enthusiastic next time. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this lovely session. Look forward to having all of you again with us for the next session, which we will inform you as soon as we have the dates finalized. Thank you and good night to all of you.